Welcome to Next to Madison, a podcast to help you live your best life.
Welcome back to another episode of Next to Madison. I am your host, Madison Malloy. Please don't forget to rate, review, subscribe, share, all that good stuff so we can keep bringing you more episodes that make you happier, healthier, and wealthier. On today's episode, we are specifically talking about happiness, how to be happy, how to stay happy, how being happy all the time is not normal and it's okay to not be happy. But my guest is back. He was on the podcast about 5 years ago. Yes, this podcast has been running for 6 years. I can't believe it. I have loved every minute of it. Or I should say every week of it, since they come out every week, every Thursday at 6:30 a.m. They debut. So I have got comedian, author, motivational speaker, and former dentist Jeffrey Gurian on with me. And he is here to talk about his books that are part of the happiness series that can transform and change your life and what it means to truly, truly be happy. That is what we all really, really want at the end of the day. We could say we want the Ferraris and the $1 million or whatever it is, the fame, the fortune, but what we truly, truly want at our essence is to be happy. So this episode is all about being happy, how to stay happy, how to be grateful, all that good stuff. But I'm going to start rambling because he has amazing stories and amazing information that you are not going to want to miss. So we'll be right back after this brief message with our guest on Next to Madison.
It's your host, Madison Malloy, and I have exciting news. My new product is now available on Amazon called Color Your Way to Abundance, a 21-day manifestation guide for wealth, health, and love. This unique coloring journal will help you manifest by coloring in the affirmations while you continue to repeat them. This will help activate these affirmations so they become a reality. Grab your copy today and relax, color, and start manifesting.
Hey, we are back with our amazing guest on this fun episode of Next to Madison. We've got Jeffrey Gurian. He's an author, a comedian, a motivational speaker, and was a former dentist. And for you loyal listeners out there, he has, yes, been on this podcast. He was on this podcast in 2020, and I'm so honored to have him back 5 years later. So, Jeffrey, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much. I can't believe 5 years already. Oh my God. I guess it was right after the pandemic.
No, it was kind of right before. I was in the studio on 39th Street, remember,
Yeah,
between 5th
right.
and 6th.
We were wearing masks.
Yeah, so maybe it was like right kind of when it started. You had just come out with the book with the dog on the cover. So we talked about
Killing
that.
your heart by changing your mind. But I had just gotten out of the hospital with COVID double pneumonia.
Yes. So
When we spoke, that was a crazy time.
it was a crazy time, but like you look back and you're like, my God, like 5 years has flown by so fast. And, you know, as my dad always says, the older you get, the faster it goes. So enjoy the ride, kid. Yeah,
The
but
scary thought.
it's a scary thought, but I think this is perfect to lead into this episode topic because you are really a guru and an expert in the area of happiness. And I think that most people want to be happy, but they're not.
It's everybody's dream. No matter where you go, all over the world, if you ask people what they want, that's all anybody wants. It's just to be happy. That's all. And people search for it in different ways, not realizing that happiness comes from within. You know,
Bingo.
one of the greatest statements I ever heard is happiness is wanting what you already have.
I like that. Repeat that again. I think that's worth repeating.
Yeah, that happiness is wanting what you already have. Now, I understand that there are people who are living in deprivation, and it would be very hard for them to be happy with what they already have, because some people don't have that much. You know, there are places in the world where people are really struggling. But in general, in the society that you and I are used to, where we're always around people that are supposedly very successful and all, and people still are not happy, it's because they're not grateful for the things that they have. And sometimes you have to look at that, you know, and I remind myself of that all the time. Last couple of days, I was having a weird day, a weird time, you know, in my mind. And I remind myself, I have no right to feel weird or strange or, you know, when people feel self-pity, it's one of the worst things that you could do for yourself, you know? So
Go into that more.
well, I remind myself, and for me personally, I have a very long gratitude list. And I think a gratitude list is very important for people to create when they're not feeling that well, when they're feeling off center. You know, a gratitude list to physically write it down, not just to think it, but to write. There's something about the power of putting pen to paper
Mhm.
that makes something very, very powerful. It imprints it more deeply into your consciousness rather than just thinking it.
Yeah.
So sometimes I have to tell myself, hey, I'm grateful for my health. I know what it's like. When I had a heart attack in 2015, I was back on stage 5 days later, but I had one of those heart attacks they call a widowmaker heart attack, where the major artery to the left side of my heart, they said, was 95% blocked.
Oh
The
my
night,
God.
yeah, it was crazy. The night before, I was out partying with the Sirius XM people. I had been a regular on Sirius on Sirius XM for a couple of years, on air and bringing on friends of ours in the comedy world, like Trevor Noah and D.L. Hughley and Artie Lang and Colin Quinn and just all our friends, you know. And then the next day, I got this weird pain in my chest. And I had an appointment with a chiropractor. I'll tell you the story because it's a crazy story. I had an appointment. It was a first visit with a chiropractor, and it was pouring rain. And I was almost not going to go out. I don't like it's. It sounds really stupid, but I don't like to go out in the rain because of my hair. So I was almost going to cancel. I was going to get back into bed. And it's a good thing I didn't because a lot of people get in bed and they never get out again. So I decided because one of the things I do in my life is I confront my uncomfortability. So many things make me uncomfortable and it's not real. One of the lectures that I do is called Don't Believe Your Thoughts. And I'm fascinated by the fact that we're all holding thoughts that are not valid for us.
Mm.
And we're holding thoughts that work against us. And where those thoughts come from, very often they start in childhood. And they were given to us by people, let me say it this way, who didn't necessarily have our best interests at heart. Sometimes it was even from family members, from our parents. Not everybody got a lot of support growing up. Some people were bullied. Somewhere along the way, we get these negative thoughts and they hold us back and
Mhm.
they create self-sabotage in our lives. So I've been battling fear my whole life and I've never let it stop me. One of my, I stuttered very badly for many years. I started stuttering when I was 6 or 7, and I stuttered through my 20s and beyond. And as you can see, I no longer stutter. It took me years. I worked on myself to learn how to control my thoughts and my mind, which is why I talk about don't believe your thoughts. And it's what led to that first book with the dog on the cover, Healing Your Heart by Changing Your Mind, a spiritual and humorous approach to achieving happiness. It's about letting go of the pains of the past
Yeah.
by, by using your thought, because as I said, we're holding thoughts that work against us. So I've been fascinated by that. It's how I cured myself of stuttering. And as you can see, not only don't I stutter, but you can't even shut me up. I talk a lot. I always have a lot to say. If you ask me one question, I go on for a long time. But it's because I'm grateful. So people need to write a gratitude list. And so I'll say, when I had that heart attack, I was back on stage 5 days later at New York Comedy Club. And the owner, Emilio Savone, said to me, "What are you crazy? You just had a heart attack." I was like, "Yeah, but it's hard to get a spot here. I don't want to lose my spot." You can relate to that. Only another comedian knows how crazy it is. And then when I had COVID, I'm laying there in the hospital. March 11th of 2020, the day they declared it a pandemic. That's the day I got sick. And because of the past heart condition, I was afraid to go to the hospital because they were warning people stay out of the emergency room. But after 2 weeks of constant pain, I had every symptom. I could still breathe because I had the presence of mind to put myself on Z-Pak, an antibiotic that I always tell people keep in the house. Ask a doctor to give you Z-Pak. It protects your lungs. And that's what kept me breathing. And my kids,
Wow.
my kids would call me and they'd be like, Dad, can you breathe? And I'd say, yeah. And they're like, maybe it's not COVID, because people were dying because they couldn't breathe. They were putting them on ventilators because their air closed off, their trachea closed up. So so after 2 weeks, I couldn't take the pain anymore. I called an ambulance. Two men in hazmat suits came to get me. And one of the nicest things, one of the men took my hand and he said to me, Don't worry, you're going to be okay. You're going to make it. And I can't tell you what that little act of kindness did. Kindness is so important. When I spent those 2 weeks alone, you couldn't have visitors. It was a nightmare. Nobody knew. It was this virus took over our lives and people were dying. So you couldn't have people come to your house. So I was alone. And he was amazed that I could get on the stretcher by myself. He said most people needed to be carried. And he said I had the best physical presentation. And when I got to the hospital, they put me in the emergency room next to a woman who was screaming, literally screaming with every breath that she took. And I was feeling sorry for myself. And I wanted them to move me, and they said, There's no place to move you. We're out of rooms. We have no place. And I had to do what I write about in my books. I had to step outside myself and start thinking not of me, but of the woman who was screaming, and which is not easy to do, by the way. Uh,
Mhm.
and think about how scared she must be or how much pain she must be in order for her to be in that condition. They were almost going to send me home until they x-rayed my lungs, and a pulmonary specialist came and he said, I'm sorry to tell you, you have COVID double pneumonia. And
Oh,
they found a room for me. They emptied the cancer ward and they created a COVID ward. And while I was laying there, the first day they just covered me in ice to bring down my fever. They put ice under my arms and on my legs. It was crazy. And but on the second day, they started me on medication. They gave me hydroxychloroquine before they politicized it. And by
yeah,
the
yeah, right. God.
yeah, by the next day I was feeling different already. And I was already thinking of comedy. And a lot of comedians got together and made a get well video for me. And people showed me so much kindness. And after I got out, I said, it's a shame that you have to be so sick to know that people care about you. Be-
I know, right?
Because in our everyday life, we don't tell people what they mean to us. We go through life feeling alone. So many people, I mean, I'm an empath, so I'm more sensitive than most people. I feel things more deeply than I want to. And that's tied in with happiness because there was a time in my life, if I was with you and you were sad, I was sadder for you than you were. I
Yeah.
overfelt my feelings. I'm like an antenna for feelings. And I didn't know what that was growing up. I just felt like it was a weakness. It's actually a great strength because if more of the world was more sensitive, it would be a much kinder world. People would treat each other nicer and they'd get along better. But there's a tendency, and especially our society mostly tells women that they're too sensitive, which is a terrible message. And even in relationships, a lot of men say that to women, you're too sensitive. That's such a negative, terrible message to say to people because it's truly a great strength.
Yeah.
And people are just as sensitive as they're supposed to be. Just men find it hard to cop to being sensitive. I have no choice. It doesn't threaten me in any way to say that I'm a sensitive being. I can't help it. It's just I'm overwhelmed by my feelings sometimes. So the key is and one of the things in achieving happiness is to eliminate negative things from your life, including people that drain you.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people, they only call you when they need your help, when they need your assistance. And that at the end of the call, they leave feeling great and you feel horrible because they took all your energy
Yeah.
because you are willing to give it to them. And so people need to learn also to censor your life in some way. Don't expose yourself to things that put you in a bad mood. Don't live in dark apartments. In my books, I write about creating your own happiness center, that everyone should have their own happiness center. And your happiness center is where you live. Because
Mhm.
once you leave the house, you're at the mercy of whatever the universe has in store for you. You have no control. If you go left or right, your whole life is going to be different. You go left, you could win the lottery. You go right, you might trip and fall down and tear your pants. But you go whichever way you're supposed to go, the universe has a plan for you. And those are the kind of thoughts that it's important to hold on to. We'll
So I,
get into that more. We'll get into that more. But go ahead, please ask.
yeah, so how much of life do you personally think is predetermined versus free will? Because you had mentioned, like, you go left, you win the lottery, you go right, you trip and fall, but you're always where you're supposed to be. Like, I'm a big believer in, like, we might not feel that where we're supposed to be, but we are somehow.
You're always where you're supposed to be, and you never made a mistake in your life. Even the bad stuff that happened, it happened exactly the way it happened in order for you to be where you are right now. Like our reality, Madison, is you and I are here. We're talking to each other. That's all that's going on. What happened this morning is over. It's gone. I don't know what's going to happen later tonight. This is
Yeah.
it. I'm in
So,
the present. I'm in the present. I'm here with you right now,
so
you
you
know?
think, because my dad thinks this way, you think that more of our life is actually predestined than we think. We have free will, but a lot of it is predetermined.
No, we have free will, which gives us the ability to make mistakes. You know, from a spiritual nature, I have been studying spirituality for 30 years. So I like to talk about the difference between spirituality and religion because a lot of people confuse them. Religion can be wonderful for people, but it tends to divide us because it puts you in a category, and people not of your religion or automatically outside of your category. Spirituality brings the whole world together because all it asks is that you believe in a force greater than yourself. And
Yeah.
you could call it nature, the universe, God, whatever is comfortable for you, as long as you know that it isn't you. Because when you think it's you that's running your whole life, then you tend to blame yourself when things don't go the way you'd like them to. I don't even say when things
Oh,
go wrong anymore, but when things don't go the way you would like them to. And, there's a tendency for people to think everyone else gets what I want, but when I want it, I don't get it. So I'm the ultimate victim of the universe. But the spiritual thought is you're supposed to try to get what you want. You're supposed to try and get what you want to achieve. And excuse me, without obsessing over it, you take the action and then you turn over the results because you have no idea what's in other people's minds.
yeah.
Look, many people are divorced who were once married. When they got married, they didn't plan to get divorced. They thought they met somebody they could trust that they're going to be with forever. And we know what happens. And so we don't really know anybody. And the spiritual concept, again, is that there's a path for each person. So when you're in the midst of something that's uncomfortable and you're like, why is this happening to me? It's part of your path. Why did I had a heart attack? I didn't plan on that. I never expected to have that. But I had to remind myself that day, you know, I didn't finish that story. I I wasn't going to go, and I decided I was going to go to the chiropractor. So I got on the train. I was getting this weird feeling in my chest. None of the symptoms that they usually describe. Like an elephant on your
Yeah.
chest, you're sweating. It felt like a cramp, like if you ever got a cramp in your calf. You know what that feels like. It's painful, but it's a fleshy muscle, so you are aware that it's cramped. In your chest, it's kind of weird. I had this weird pain and I was rubbing it and it felt better. And I was like, well, you can't rub away a heart attack, so maybe it's just muscular because I have been working out a lot at the gym. And I thought, well, I'll go to the chiropractor and maybe he can fix it. So I got on the train and the pain's getting worse. And I get off at 49th, 50th Street. I had about 6 blocks to walk. And for some reason, I'll never know why, I turned down 50th Street towards Radio City and I see a police van. The pain was getting pretty intense. And I said, I better tell somebody. Now, it's very awkward to tell someone that you think you're having a heart attack. Because what if you're not? You sound like a lunatic, right? So I went up to this police van and I knock on the window and it's pouring rain, right? So I'm holding an umbrella and I said to the cop, sorry to bother you, but I think I'm having a heart attack. And the cop says to me, well, I think you should go to the hospital. And I was like, well, that's why I'm telling you. I'm not just telling everyone. I thought that they would say to me, I really thought they'd say hop in and they put the siren on, they drive me to the hospital. He's like, we're stuck in traffic. It'll probably be faster if you walk. So I said, well, where's the nearest hospital? And he didn't know. So he took out his phone and he starts looking and he says to me, do you have Google Maps? And I'm like, no, no, it's like my life is always a Woody Allen movie. Do you have Google Maps? So I'm like, no. So then he said, well, I think you should download Google Maps. And that's when I walked away because I'm like, this is stupid. I'm telling the cop I have a heart attack. He tells me to download Google Maps. So I could only get another half a block because the pain was getting very intense. So there's another cop on a walkie-talkie. I stop it. Same thing. Sorry to bother you. I think I'm having a heart attack. He says, stand on the side. Stand on the side. A couple of minutes go by. I said, are they coming? He said, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't call them yet. Nobody seemed too upset by the fact that I said I was having a heart attack. And I'll tell you why, Madison. I think it was because I was very calm. Because of my spiritual studies, I told myself, if I'm having a heart attack, this is a really weird thing, but this is my path for today. I can't change it. I have nothing to do with it. And for some reason, I was very calm. So
Wow.
a fire truck came because most firemen are EMTs, and very often they're the first on the scene. So firemen come, they get off the truck, they say to me, who's the patient? I said, me. The guy goes, well, climb up on the truck. And I said, really? He's like, now we're just effing with you. I'm not cursing because I don't think you have cursing on your show. He goes, now
Oh, I do.
we're just fucking with you like that. Everyone was joking. Finally, an ambulance came and they took me and they got me to the hospital and the doors wouldn't open. It was a comedy of errors. They wheeled me out in the pouring rain. My hair is getting all wet. The doors won't open to the hospital. They're wheeling me back and forth like a credit card in a slot, and they can't get me in. The guy had to climb up manually and open the door to get me in the hospital. And I
Oh,
laid there for 9 hours. Luckily, because they didn't have a bed for me. Luckily, some genius started me on blood thinners, and that's what saved me because they weren't convinced I was having a heart attack because I'm so unique that I had the kind of heart attack that doesn't show on an EKG.
what?
So yeah, it was called a non-ST wave heart attack and a widowmaker heart attack. Anyway, they like I said, they put in a stent and they saved me. And on the operating table, I was joking with the surgeon. Look, I'm always joking. I felt what they were doing. They were unplugging my heart. And I said to the surgeon, I feel you in my heart, not in a romantic way, but I feel you in my heart while I'm laying on the operating table. And the whole surgical team started to laugh. And he came to my room later that day. He said, I have to give you a hug. He said, in 30 years of doing heart surgery, no one has ever joked with me on the operating table before. And
Wait, you were awake?
I wasn't completely asleep. They gave me twilight sleep. So I was watching on a screen while they went into my heart with this cannula to
Ah,
unplug it. And I felt what they were doing. So I said, I feel you in my heart, not in a romantic way. So he said, I'll give you more anesthetic. And then they put me out completely. And that's when he came to my room later and he said, I want you to know you're a miracle. And I said, you're the miracle. You're the guy that saved me. And, you know, all those crazy stories. But positive thinking is what helped me to get through it. Because when I left the hospital, they said to me, try and act like this never happened. And I'm thinking, how do you act like you didn't have a serious heart attack? How are we supposed to act? And that's when I went back on stage 5 days later because I didn't know what to do in the house. I'm just walking around. What am I supposed to do? So the only thing I knew to do was go make people laugh.
but that's an amazing story. But it's true. It's like, my next question to you was just going to be like, were you happy during that whole? Did you still feel happy during that whole?
I was very grateful. I learned to express gratitude is one of the key things in being happy. When people are
Yeah.
not happy, it's because they want more of whatever it is that they want. They want more security, they want more money, they want more girlfriends or boyfriends, they're just not satisfied. You know, some
So
people I know some people who are very rich that are just unhappy. They're just not happy people. They have private planes and they travel all over the world and they're not happy. They're miserable. Like I
why?
said,
Okay,
happiness,
so
wanting what you already have.
yeah, no, I love that. But I think it's good to always strive for more, right? to have those goals. But so you're saying you can be happy all the time as long as you're grateful for what you currently have while you're striving for more, correct?
No, nobody can be happy all the time. You'd have to be crazy to be happy all the time. When, when I'm on these shows, I get to speak a lot. I'm, I'm on the radio a lot, and they ask me that. You're happy all the time. If you come to my house, it's filled with balloons and crayons
Yes.
and toys. I always now I have more balloons than ever because somebody recently did a shoot here with me, and we had lots of balloons and toys. And you would think little kids lived here because what I started saying before about creating your own happiness center. Every place in your home where you look should be something that makes you happy.
Ah,
Pictures, pictures of people that you care about, colors. Like I need brightness. So my carpeting is white, my piano is white, most of my furniture is white, and then I have bright colors all around. People live in dark apartments and they wonder why they're sad. You know,
it's
we're
true.
like plants. We need light. We need light, like I do anyway. I need brightness. I
Yeah.
turn on the lights all the time. I need certain things make me comfortable, and you have to cater to yourself. So wherever you look should be something that makes you smile. So when people come here, they're amazed. I could do tours in my apartment. I have a guy coming next week. I just did this big podcast called Comedy Saved Me. He has a lot of famous podcasts already, and they wanted to talk to me about the kind of stuff that we're talking about. And he's coming to visit next week because he wants to see my comedy museum because I have pictures that go back more than 30 years with all the stars that I
Yeah.
work from the golden age up to the YouTube comics. Ron Bennington said on video, it's part of this sizzle reel from a big project that I'm doing. Um, he said that he doesn't know anybody else who knew the comics from the golden age and the comics who are on YouTube today, all the new guys. Um, I, I've been around that long, but for some reason I get to know all these people and get to work with them, and it's been very special. And a lot of it is about happiness. It's energy, We're all very sensitive to energy, but we don't even realize it. It's like when you meet people, sometimes you meet people and you feel like you've known them forever and they make you comfortable and you like them right away. And
Yeah.
then sometimes you meet people and they make you feel weird. They like a weird vibe. People call it vibes, but it's very real. We pick up on people's energy. What you put out, you is what you draw into your life.
Yeah. It's true. We're
So
all operating on a frequency.
absolutely, and we feel it. But sometimes we don't trust our first impression. Your first impression, it's not just a cliche that women have a very strong intuition.
Yeah.
Women's intuition, trust your intuition. When you meet somebody and they give you a weird vibe, go with that. They try to tell people, well, give people the benefit of the doubt, a second chance. A lot of people have made that mistake,
And
you
they
know.
end up on Dateline.
Well, yeah, and it doesn't only apply to women. Men make a lot of bad mistakes too. Trust your intuition, trust your gut. We
Yeah.
have we have feelings about things, and most of the time they're true. And so again, it's all about energy. That's so much a part of my life. When I was at NYU, I spent 12 years at NYU as a clinical professor in oral medicine and orofacial pain. And my specialty was taking away headaches just using energy from my hands. Now, if you walk into a university and tell them you take away headaches with your hands, there's a good chance they'll call the police. But they saw me doing it for 12 years. So they had me lecture to the whole faculty and then the head of the TMJ department. A lot of people's unhappiness comes because they don't feel physically well. They're clenching and grinding their teeth in their
Mhm.
sleep from stress. It's a very, very common habit. And in this country alone, there's more than 150 million people, and this is an old number, so it's probably more, over 150 million people who suffer with what they think are migraine headaches that are really what we call musculoskeletal headaches that come from clenching and grinding your teeth. Your TMJ, have you ever heard of TMJ?
Yeah.
TMJ stands for temporomandibular joint. It's the joint that allows you to open and
Yes.
close your mouth. And very often that joint gets stressed out from overuse when people are clenching and grinding. And it causes a lot of physical symptoms, neck pain, shoulder pain, back pain. facial pain, but mostly headaches. And that was my specialty. So lately, I've become a motivational speaker at dental conferences and
Love it.
talking about thought and how to process things because dentistry is a very stressful field. They always say dentists have the highest rate of suicide and the highest rate of divorce. So
Mm.
I did the divorce. I'm trying to put off the suicide for as long as just a joke, but no,
Now
in answer to your question, if someone's always happy, you'd have to be a maniac to always be happy.
Wait, so okay. So
You're
what
human,
what
you
do
know.
you do when you get sad?
I remind myself of all the good things. I do what I write about. I walk the walk. I don't just talk the talk.
Yeah.
And I feel really strongly about that, that I honestly do that, that I talk to myself. I tell myself, anytime I've ever felt sorry for myself, I go in the street and God put some unfortunate person in front of me
Yeah.
with either in a wheelchair or something, and I go, what right do I have to feel sad? I have so many wonderful things. My daughters are the most important thing in the world to me. And that's why I get along well with my ex-wife and her husband, because my ex-wife was a great mom. And because of the principles that I study, we're friends. We celebrate holidays together.
Yeah.
When I go and visit my kids on weekends, they have homes upstate. My ex-wife is there with her husband. We just did that this past weekend. I just got home from performing in the Borscht Belt Festival in Ellenville, New York. I did 3 shows. I was headlining 2 different shows. And when I went to their home, they had a big dinner at their house. My ex-wife and her husband comes in, brings me stuff. Jeffrey, you want a drink? You want some ice cream? You need mustard for your hot dog? Whatever it is, we get along very well because of the principles that I try to live by that I'm talking about that create happiness. A lot of exes hate each other, which is horrible. I
Mhm.
mean, if you never had kids together, you never have to see each other again. But if you did, if you did have children together, my children wouldn't be who they were if it wasn't for her DNA. Her genes had to be there in order for them to be who they were. If you love your kids, you can't hate the person that gave them to you. That's
Amen.
that's my feeling. And again, so that leads to happiness. A lot of people are unhappy because of their past situations with other people. And it's about thought. It's about how you process it. We never said a bad word about each other. I have an aunt who's 93 and she's very much in touch with my ex-wife. And she said, she's never said a bad word about you. And I never said a bad word about her for the good of our children, you
Mhm.
know? So those are the kind of things that make me happy, that I can lead a life like that. I don't really have resentments. You know who I resent customer service when they connect me to India and the Philippines and I can't
Oh,
understand what the people are saying. And I've been spending hours lately on the phone with Microsoft and Amazon, and they're always sending me overseas. That gets me upset. And then I have to remind myself it's not important. You know, a lot of the things, I don't want to make myself sick over stuff that's not important. So I'm always reminding myself, my goal in life is always to put out positive energy to the universe. That's always been
mhm.
my goal for many years. When I was a dentist, I was a cosmetic specialist. I liked making people look beautiful. You
Yeah.
know, I always compliment you on your smile. You have such a great smile. And a
Oh,
smile,
thank you.
smile is such an important thing. So I love doing that. And I love making people laugh. So
Yeah.
I was able to combine my careers. Cindy Adams said she figured out my careers that I make people laugh to see if they have any teeth missing.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, so what whatever I do, like I'm fascinated by thought, and that's what led me to write my other happiness books. My second one was called Fight the Fear, Overcoming Obstacles That Stand in Your Way,
Love
because
it.
I grew up with so much fear. And again, I don't know why, and it's not important to know exactly why. It's important to look at all the possibilities. As an avocation, I work with stutterers all over the world, and I teach them how not to stutter. and I have great success. And it hurts me that the stuttering community doesn't tell people that they can get better. I contacted a big stuttering organization and I told them my story that I used to be a severe stutterer and I no longer stutter and I want to know if I could be helpful. And they told me, thank you, but we look at stuttering as a form of DEI, if you can believe that. I was horrified.
Oh my God.
They look at stutterers like they're a minority. They want them to be proud of their stuttering. Don't try to get better. Just accept yourself. And there's a serenity prayer that says, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the most important line, and the wisdom to know the difference. If I wasn't given the grace to know the difference, I'd still be stuttering today. But
Yeah.
stuttering is not something that I had to accept. You only accept things that you can't change. I always say, if a man has a limp, he limps in every room of his house. He can't go into a room and close the door and walk perfectly. But I could speak fine when I was alone. I only stuttered when I was trying to talk to somebody else, which told me you can't have a disability based on your location or on who's in the room.
True.
If it's a true disability, it's there all the time. It doesn't come and go. It's situational. So again, it's all about thought. So I wrote the book Fight the Fear because I had fears of being a doctor, fears of performing on stage, fears
Yeah.
of fears of being a dad, fears of running a business. Everything scared me, fears of traveling. So I still challenge myself. I'm afraid to travel because I get lost very easily because of my ADHD. So in 2019, I went to Japan all by myself. It was the biggest challenge that I could do. I was lost every day. I confronted every fear. I performed in 2 comedy shows in Japan. I went to 2 spiritual meetings. As I said, I was lost every day and I never let it stop me. I got all over. I went from Tokyo to Osaka to Kyoto and I made it. And then when I was recovering from COVID, I wrote my third happiness book called Facing Adversity, Stories of Courage and Inspiration. And they're
Love.
true stories, for people who feel sorry for themselves, who feel like their life is not going in the direction they want it to. This is not about me, this last book, Facing Adversity.
Yeah.
It's about, I took true stories. Over 20 years, I started collecting stories about people that overcame tremendous difficulties. I've always been fascinated by that, maybe because I conquered stuttering.
Yeah.
A, a brief thing, a man born with no arms and legs who today he at 10 years old he wanted to commit suicide because he was bullied so badly, and today he's an internationally known motivational speaker, married to a beautiful woman with 4 children, and his name is Nick Vujicic. And I watch him on I saw him on Oprah, and he's on the internet all the time, and he gives motivational talks to people
Yeah.
born with no arms and legs. Meanwhile, the singles bars are filled with tall, handsome guys with all their limbs who can't get a date. And this man, no arms and legs, and he's married to a beautiful woman and has 4 children. So it's about how you process things, how you think about stuff, you know.
Yeah. Your
And
mind, well, your mindset creates your reality.
yes, exactly. What you put out is what you draw into your life. Your subconscious mind does not know the difference between fact and fiction.
Yeah.
It believes whatever you tell it. So when I was stuttering, I'm battling with my subconscious mind. My subconscious mind wants me to continue stuttering. It doesn't want me to succeed. Your subconscious mind is the voice in your head that tells you that you're not going to achieve your goals, that you're not enough, that you're
Yeah.
that, that you're too old, you're too young, you're too thin, you're too fat, you're too this or that. You're just not right, and you can't listen to it. And what I teach people is you make that voice a whisper. If you were in a crowd of people and someone was whispering to you, there's a good chance you wouldn't hear them.
Yeah.
And that's what you have to do with that voice. And it takes a lot of work. This is not an overnight process. You have to work on yourself. I create affirmations to retrain my brain, to just literally change my mind, which was the title of my first book, Healing Your Heart by Changing Your Mind.
Yeah.
Literally becoming a new person, processing information in a different way.
Yeah.
Very, very important. And those are the things that allow you to be happy. Not all the time, but a lot of the time. Because
So
you
yeah. So what I took away like for those people that are listening, like, when you don't feel happy, gratitude is the key. Like
think
make a
about,
list of the things that you're grateful
write
for.
write it down. If you have all your senses, if you can walk well, if your hearing is good, if you're a kind person, if you have friends, if you have people that care about you, if you have people in your family, write it down. There's something about that. And you'll find that your good list, like what I did, I made a good and bad list. I took a piece of paper, good on one side, bad on the other. I read this somewhere and it's magical.
Yeah.
And I wrote down everything that I did not like about myself because every single person has things about themselves that they don't like, that they would change if they could. But a lot of things you can't change. You can't change your genetics. So I wrote down a bad list and then I wrote down all the things about myself that I did like. And what you'll find usually is that your good list will outweigh your bad list. And it just proves to you that there's good in you, that you're a good person, that you're worthwhile.
Yeah.
And so it's very important. Self-esteem, self-confidence, all those things are very important. But when I'm in front of an audience of hundreds of people, I'll still feel anxiety, but I have the confidence to know that I can deliver what they need to hear because I've done it so many times.
Yeah.
So I don't let that little voice scare me. I tell myself, I can't wait to get up on stage in front of these people. I can't wait to do it. You know, when I help stutterers with their speech, they hope nobody will call on them. I say, no, flip the thought. Tell them, I can't wait for somebody to call on me. Raise your hand first. Show them
Yeah.
how much you want to put yourself out there. Don't cower in fear. Put yourself out there. Because again, self-esteem and self-confidence are very important. Always emitting self-confidence. It's a
Yeah.
thing. People can feel it.
Oh, it's true. I mean, and the thing is, like, for those of you who don't know, like, I've known you, my God, Jeffrey, we met in 2010 or 11.
Right? Yeah, at least.
It's
Yeah, I know.
insane. Like, I was like in my 20s when I met you.
I
It's,
thought you still were.
yeah, I wish, right? But here's the thing is, I was talking to somebody and I remember just like looking back and I just thought how as much as comedy was a struggle because it's small pie in a big pool, right? A lot of people trying to get into the same pie. We were living, it's still hard, like living the dream and meeting so many wonderful, nice people and making people laugh. And I remember saying to looking back now, I said, God, I wish I had allowed myself to be happier during that time. But I wasn't. I wasn't happy because I was waiting for the thing to make me happy, which was the next big show, the fame, the money, whatever it was, right? The recognition, the validation. And now
Mm-hmm.
I look back and I'm like, my God, I was living the dream. We were running in comedy clubs, some of the greatest people, making people laugh. And I look back now and I'm like, God, I wish I felt like I put on a good mask, but like in my early 30s, late 20s, I wasn't happy. I was not. I was waiting for something else to make me happy.
Oh, I
Not
get it.
anymore. Not anymore, but I did.
I totally get it. We didn't have this conversation then,
No.
but I'll tell you something. So in 2020, they came out with a little documentary about me, and a production company saw it recently, and they contacted me and they said, "We think you have an interesting story. We want to do this
Yeah.
like a huge project." And they created a sizzle reel. And if you know D.L. Hughley,
Hmm.
D.L. Hughley is one of the original kings of comedy. He just came on, he said he wants to produce it.
I
That
love that.
D.L. Hughley presents Jeffrey Gurian. Now, whether this is going to happen or not, I don't know. But I'm so much more comfortable than I used to be years ago because I understand if it's supposed to happen, it'll happen.
Yeah.
This is nothing that I looked for. It came to me
Well,
as a
you're a
result.
good person. You have good energy, and that good energy is attracting these. positive opportunities. And people want to see you. I mean, for those of you who have never met Jeffrey, he's like, you meet him and your life will never be the same. You're just like this radiant light. We still laugh when my dad first met you at my book party. It's funny. He said, "You're an interesting looking guy. Who are you?"
I know that was so nice when he came over. That was so, I always appreciate when people come over to say something nice because they don't have to. They do it
Yeah.
because they want to, you
Yeah.
know? That's another thing about people accepting a compliment. There are some people like if I say to you, "Oh, I love your outfit," some people say, "Oh, this old thing, I got it for $3 at a
Yeah.
yard sale." Instead of just saying thank you, they they deflect the compliment like they don't deserve to be complimented. "Oh, this old thing, oh, I look horrible." Don't you know? It's just like just say thank you. If someone's complimenting you, it's because they want to, you know? So with this big project, DL came on, big honor. You know, I went to
Yeah.
see him recently at City Winery. And I have it on video. He said, "Jeffrey, I would do this for free." He said, "That's how much I want to do this." Now,
Oh,
again, I don't know if it's going to happen or not. They're pitching it to networks. If it's supposed to, it will. If it's not supposed to, something else will happen. I'm comfortable with it.
that's it.
There was a time in my life I would be freaking out. I'm just like beside myself. Gee, I hope this happens. I don't know. You
You
know,
know what you're living out right now is you're embodying the law of detachment, and that's where the magic happens, I truly believe.
yeah, I'm really comfortable. I swear.
Yeah.
I'm really comfortable. I'm just like, I get what I'm supposed to get. You don't lose anything you're supposed to have. If something is taken away from you, it's because it's not supposed to be there. You know,
Yeah.
if I don't get something that I'm working towards, the spiritual thought is I'm not being punished. I'm supposed to have something better than that. And if I got what I thought I wanted, I wouldn't be available for the good thing that's coming to me.
Yeah, I love
The
that.
problem is the problem is it requires patience. And as human beings, we don't have patience really. We want everything right away. We want it when
Yeah.
we want it. And sometimes you have to wait for stuff. And it can
Yeah.
feel frustrating. And I think that's a big cause of people not feeling happy. They want more than their share. You know, in the spiritual world, they tell you to try to be a worker among workers, which is a very hard thing to do in the entertainment world because it's all about ego.
Yeah.
Told me, Jackie Mason once told me what I think is one of the greatest lines. He said, "When you go in to buy a shirt, the guy just gives you the shirt. He doesn't give you a shirt and a picture of himself and say, this is who I am and this is what I do and this is who I know." But in the entertainment business, you're always telling people who you are and what you do and who, you know, I have a magazine, I'm on the cover. Very often I have it with me when I'm traveling. When people ask what I do, it's hard for me to tell them. I just show them the cover of the magazine. This is what I do, you know?
Yeah.
It's like it's very hard to I have a lot of hyphens in my name because I do a lot of different things that
Yeah.
I enjoy doing, you know? And
No, and that's important.
they all bring me joy. People need to create a balance. When I lecture to dentists, I tell them you have to create a balance. You know, to most of the world, an inch is a small amount of space. To a
Yeah.
dentist, it's about 3 teeth.
Oh,
We work we work in a very, very tiny space and we're working inside of a tooth in millimeters,
yeah.
working on people that are always afraid you're going to hurt them. And it takes its toll. When you're doing that for many years, it really takes its toll on people.
Yeah.
And so you need a balance in your life. For
Oh
me, the
my
balance
God.
was comedy, you know, the balance was comedy. I want to see if I have that. I don't know if I have it. I'm looking. I don't know if you know my other book, Man Robs Bank with His Chin. This is one of my favorite books because I like silly comedy. It's
Yeah.
Man Robs Bank with His Chin and Other Unusual Stories Missed by Mainstream Media. And I got blurbs from Richard Lewis, our dear friend who left us this past year from Curb Your Enthusiasm,
Yeah.
Colin Jost, and Nick Kroll. And what Richard Lewis wrote, he said, these hilarious stories And the author's longtime reputation as a top comedian makes you wonder why he isn't selling out clubs in North Korea.
Of course, that's hilarious.
Leave it to Richard Lewis. Yeah,
But
that's my
comedy is like such a gift. And here's the thing too, before we wrap up, is you've been in comedy a lot longer than I have, and I've been in comedy a long time. And it's like, yeah, as much as you try to get away from the comedy and go, I'm trying to do more of the speaking route, you still get sucked back in. You don't get sucked back in because you don't want to. You get sucked back in because there's something in your soul that
it's a
comedy
drug.
bring. Yes, and I love it. And I remember feeling like I was feeling like kind of down and just not. And I was like, what is going on? I'm like, I just need to get on stage. And I got on stage, and it was like that reset to. And it was just such a great medicine. But what I was going to say, most comedians are not happy.
Well, a lot of the young ones are struggling. First of all, they go on stage looking like they're homeless. You know, years ago, when I knew the greats of comedy, everyone would go on stage wearing a suit. You did that to show respect for the field and your respect for your audience. People these days go on looking horrible.
Yeah.
And it's a very tough business to make a name for yourself where people start to know you. Most of the time, it doesn't happen unless you go on a national tour and you get to
Mhm.
know people all over the country. It's a very, very hard thing to do.
It
You know,
is.
I realized the other night I was on stage. As I said, I was headlining two of the main shows at the Borscht Belt Festival. It's such an amazing feeling making a whole room full of people laugh. It was a
Ugh,
packed theater and every line killed. And I just felt so good. I got off the stage and I called one of my daughters. I said, you can't imagine what it feels like to be able to make that many people, strangers, laugh. It's the
it's the
craziest thing to go out on
it's
stage
the
and try to
best.
convince strangers that what you think is funny is actually funny. It's the hardest thing in the world to do. And on the second show, a guy went on before me who I have to say he was very bad. The audience didn't like him, and it drained the energy out of the room. Energy is very real, and I had to
Mhm.
follow that. And it was very hard for me to bring back the energy. I did the same material that I did the night before that totally killed. And to be honest, it went well, but there were certain jokes that they didn't respond to as well because they were still down from that previous energy. And it's very
It's
real.
happened. So it happened a lot, but usually the host would come in and do a couple jokes. You knew you bombed. You knew you didn't do well if the host comes up after you and starts slinging jokes. That's when you know you sucked, right? Like
Well,
that's a telltale sign.
I don't think this guy needed that. I think he knew, but it was just, it was, oh boy, it
Uh,
was one of those things. But there's nothing like making other people laugh. Laughter is, they say laughter is the best medicine. I'm on the board of this group
yes.
called LaughMD, and LaughMD brings comedy to people in hospitals and people in recovery. And they
Yeah.
give them pre-programmed iPods so that they can't search for things they're not supposed to see. You can't look at porn, you can't look at news, whatever. You can only see comedy. And that helps them change their mindset.
I
Because when
love.
people are sick, years ago I performed at Sloan Kettering for cancer patients, and they wheeled them in on IVs. And as an empath, it was hard for me to see people so sick, but making them laugh was such a special thing. These
Yeah.
people, when people are sick, other people tend to withdraw from them because it's awkward. You don't know what to say when someone is very sick.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just don't know how to be, and sometimes people withdraw. And so people who are sick can be very lonely. And so when you can go there and you make them laugh, there's a magic to that because they're not that sick that they can't laugh. They literally wheeled people in beds on IVs and they were laughing.
Oh my gosh. What
And
a great gift you gave them though.
it was a very special experience, very,
Yeah.
very special. So that's what LaughMD does. So I try to align myself with things. And that's why I'm so glad that we got to talk about this today, Madison. I can't
I
believe it.
know.
5 years. That's crazy. A lot has happened, but
Oh,
I'm always grateful. I'm so happy that you want to talk about stuff like that because it's important to put that message out to the world.
it
People
is. Yeah.
people need to know that. And so if anybody listening to this is interested in the books, they're all on Amazon. All they have to do is look up my name, Jeffrey Gurian, Gurian. and they're all there under the Happiness series. And they've been resonating with people. They became bestsellers on Amazon.
I love it. And they deserve to be, you guys. He is, I mean, I've had the gift of knowing you for 14 years, 15 years.
At
God.
least, at least.
Yeah. But for those of you who do not have the gift of knowing him, definitely check out his comedy and check out his books. You're a man full of wisdom. And I always love getting together with you. And so we got to make that happen.
Yeah, we always have good talks. We
Yeah.
definitely talk, so we will make it happen. As soon
Yeah,
as
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you guys make sure you go and buy one of his books, check out his website, go check him out at a show. He is amazing. You will not be disappointed. And yeah, this was amazing. I think it's true as a reminder, you know, you can't be happy all the time because you'd be a freaking lunatic.
Right.
And to remember to have gratitude for what you have because there's so many blessings. As you're striving for more, you can only get more if you're grateful for what you have now.
Absolutely. And I just want to say my website is comedymatterstv.com. It's not only about comedy, it's about there's an about column and there's a column, there's a piece on headaches, on stuttering, on spirituality and healing, all kinds of stuff on there. And on Instagram, I'm at Jeffrey Gurian. TikTok is at Jeffrey L. Gurian. And I don't know if you have a way of posting these, but I'll send them to you and you can put them down. And I always,
I love
you
it.
know, if people have questions, I never mind telling my email is jeffrey@jeffreygurian.com.
I love
You know,
it. So you guys
so
check him out, follow him. It'll be worth it. Trust me, this guy is just radiating energy. He'll even radiate energy through the screen.
thanks. So yeah, well, you know, I even put on cologne for this just to talk to you.
I can smell you. I can smell you through the screen, right? Well,
Yeah,
good. Well, Jeffrey, thank
it's
you
been
so
wonderful.
much.
And thank you for having me. Really, it's so great to see you, Madison. And
Yes,
I'm soon.
you definitely will. So thank you, Jeffrey, and thank you to everyone who's listening. We will see you next time to find out who's next.
Hey, your host here, Madison Malloy. Please make sure to subscribe to the show on all podcast platforms and please rate and review us on iTunes and Spotify. Also, if you have any questions or comments, you can email us at contact@nexttomadison.com. I thank you again for listening. Bye.